Sunday morning, I heard the preacher say, "Thou shalt not kill." I don't wanna hear nothing else about killing, and that it's God's will. Our children are watching us, they put their trust in us, they're gonna be like us. So let's learn from our history and do it differently. I hope for more love, more joy and laughter. I hope we'll have more than you'll ever need. I hope we'll have more happy ever after. I hope we can all live more fearlessly, and we can lose all your pain and misery. I hope, oh Rosie, her man, he gets too rough. That's all she can say is he's a good man, and he don't mean no harm. He was just brought up that way. But our children are watching us, they put their trust in us, they're gonna be like us. It's okay for us to disagree, we can work it out lovingly. I hope for more love, more joy and laughter. I hope you'll have more than you'll ever need. I hope you'll have more happy ever after. I hope you can all live more fearlessly, and you can lose all your pain and misery. I hope there must be a way to change what's going on. No, I don't have all the answers. I hope for more love, more joy and laughter. I hope you'll have more than you'll ever need. I hope you'll have more happy ever after. I hope we can all live more fearlessly, and you can lose all your pain and misery. I hope, and we can lose all the pain and misery. I hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Utica. I'm Paul Tenarwitz, and I'm the president of the Board of Trustees. Whether you're visiting here for the first time or have been a member for many years, you are welcome here. Whatever faiths you have known, if any, you are welcome here. Wherever you are and whoever you love, you are welcome here. We are invited to bring our whole selves to the worship service, our doubts as well as our convictions, the pain and the joy we have known, our longing for connection and understanding. Every part of you is welcome here. If you're signing in today for the first time, we're glad that you've joined us. We would like to learn more about you and connect you with our newsletter, if you like. There is a link in the chat to a form that we hope our visitors would fill out, and we hope you'll stay for informal conversation and breakout groups after the service. We have a couple announcements today. First one is next Sunday, UU Utica is invited to join UU Congregation of Upper Valley. This means watch for a different Zoom link and be aware that the service will be at 10 a.m. And our second announcement is that Reverend Lori Staubitz is starting with us today and will be part of the service. And please give a warm welcome to Lori. Let us open our hearts and minds to the experience of community and the wisdom of love.
Good morning, everybody. This hour we come together to renew our faith and in the wholeness and the goodness and the beauty of life. And that is a difficult task with some of the bad news that surrounds us. But let's come here together this morning to create a space where hope can flourish, because we will need that hope if we are going to move forward into this new year together with any kind of a future that is joyful and meaningful. So come, let us worship together. And let's join in our opening hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. And everyone will be muted, but I know that many of you know this. This is a very dear hymn for us and a great way to start the new year. So please sing out as loud as you can, even though we will be muted.
Flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds what though the tempest around me roars, I know the truth is liveth. What though the dark prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Make sure you see the chalice. The chalice. In the soft light of this flame, may our lives shimmer anew. May we notice new possibility in those relationships that seem lost. May the turning of year give birth to a dream. May the emerging light pull a new story into view. May what is give way to what might be. May we believe again in the world we imagine.
No one needs to tell you what a terrible year 2020 was, but I'm going to anyway, very briefly. A pandemic claimed 2 million lives worldwide. Tens of millions of Americans lost their jobs and livelihoods. In the largest protests in US history, people of all colors filled American streets to demand racial justice. A bitter presidential election drove even deeper wedges between us. In fact, 2020 was so monumentally bad that the third presidential impeachment in US history ranks about the 10th biggest story of the year. But now 2020 is hindsight. A new year has dawned, and it looks a little bit like the old year, but give it time. We are on the cusp of a brighter year, many years, we hope. Already we have administered millions of doses of vaccine that hold the promise of controlling this pandemic. The economy is slowly rebounding and will get better as the virus recedes. We have shined a brighter spotlight on racial and economic inequities, and we will hopefully see those gaps narrowed. In a few minutes during Community Candles, we're going to open the virtual floor for all of you to offer your hopes for 2021 and beyond. But let me prime the pump first by telling you one of mine. As a science journalist, I have devoted my life to the belief that finding and broadcasting truth are noble and necessary pursuits. In the past few years, I have been dismayed by the declining respect for science and the continued attacks on a free press. But I am optimistic that new national leadership in a new year will begin to restore our trust in science. I hope that saying someone listens to the scientists becomes not an insult, but a compliment. I hope that journalists are no longer called the enemy, but as the watchdogs we are, holding the powerful accountable and amplifying the voices of those who have been shunted to society's back corners. In a few minutes, Carol will give her hopes for 2021. And when it's time to hear Community Candles, we'd like you to offer yours. But first, Melissa will bring us a message of hope and inspiration.
So I am here to talk to our young and young at heart, wherever you might fall on that spectrum, about something that's really, really powerful, and that's hope. But first I want you to think about, have you ever hoped for something? And did that thing you hoped for happen? When was the last time you hoped something would happen? Did it happen? Did it not happen? So now you've got that in your mind. I want to think about hope a little bit like these. So imagine that many of you recognize these. You see them on the ground around you in the fall. If you're anywhere near my part of South Utica, the streets are lined with them somewhat literally. These are acorns. So, what do you think this acorn hopes to be someday? Have you ever thought of an acorn having hope? Well, acorns, we know, grow up typically to be oak trees. So we could say an acorn hopes to be an oak tree. But now, here's why acorns remind me of hope. What if I just take the acorns and I put them right here on a table? And I just left it and I walked away from it. Would it have any hope of becoming an oak tree from the top of my table? Now, I know we don't have a lot of our young folks on here, but think about it. You can shake your head at me. What do you think? Do you think an acorn can become an oak tree from a table? Oh, I don't think so either. Acorns aren't becoming an oak tree from a table. So acorns need more things than that. They can hope to become an oak tree, but we got to give it some place to live. It's got to have a good grassy soil to find its place into. When it starts to grow, it's going to need rainwater to help it start to pick up and have the nutrients that it needs. We need to make sure it has plenty of sunshine to give it energy. And then, once it gets all of those things, then it gets to become an oak tree. And like acorns, our hope needs other things to come to life. We start with our imaginations, which is what we're doing today. We are imagining the things that we're hoping for. So we're going to ask you people to share their hopes later, but take a moment, maybe even close your eyes and imagine something you'd hope for. Think about what it looks like and what it would be and what it would take. And your hopes are just like acorns. They need a little work and care and action and help and luck to really become to life. But with all of those things, an acorn can become an oak tree, and your hopes can become what you imagine them to be. And of course, could you ever have an oak tree without first having the acorn? No, of course not. And so in the same way, if we want things to happen to be done, everything starts with hope, with our imagination of what we think things can be, and then our actions to help it grow to life and become a great big tree. And that is the power of hope.
Thank you, Melissa. That's just a very apropos subject for us today as we start the new year. No matter how old we are, the messages for all ages is an important part of the service. It is for me anyway. So thank you for that. So in these times, I think it's easy to believe in scarcity, that there isn't enough. There's not enough to go around, and whatever resources we do have, we need to hold tight. Perhaps put them in reserve, not only for ourselves, but maybe some family members. And that may be very true for your family. But I do believe that we have a great deal more to give than we may think. And so I think it is precisely in the times that are the toughest that giving provides a way to strengthen community and to provide a path forward for healing, for restoration, and for renewal. And so with that, we will now receive our morning offering.
I have so many hopes for 2021. It's hard to know where to begin. I have hopes for myself, my sons and their friends, for our congregation, for Utica and the surrounding community, for our country, for our world, and on and on. Where to begin? Let me offer that I hope we don't go back to normal. I hope that this year has taught us that we need to pay attention to policies and politics, science, the earth and its inhabitants, and that we need to speak up for justice, kindness, children, future generations, immigrants, species that are disappearing from our planet. I hope we don't become cynical from all the injustices we've observed, especially this most outrageous ones that we've seen this past year and will likely see in the week ahead. I hope we begin to create a community, a country, a world that is based on UU principles such as the inherent worth and dignity of each person, justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations, peace, a respect for the interdependent web of existence. I hope that I find the energy and the commitment to do this work and that you will too. That is what I hope. After some music, we will practice community candles, which is an opportunity for the congregation to be with one another as we mark notable things happening in our lives. And as part of this New Year's service, we also want to invite you to share your hopes for the year. Think about what you're hopeful for as this music plays, and if you like, you can put your hopes in the chat. When the music has ended, you can choose to unmute and speak your hopes out loud.
It's really lovely to be back here with you again. I served briefly last March for about 3 weeks and got to know some of you. So I just really feel honored and grateful that you've invited me back to be with you during this very important time. You know, we've all come through the portals of this new year, and many of us, as we have already heard, are all too eager to leave 2020 behind. Interestingly enough, the name for this month, January, comes from the Roman god Janus. And Janus is two-faced, not in the negative way, but Janus's one face looks to the past and the other face looks to the future. And the time-honored traditions that we have around New Year's with New Year's resolutions is to look to the past, to assess where we are, how we've done, whether or not we, made it through our to-do list, and then to set it right, to begin again and get committed to making changes. But psychologists will tell us that this kind of self-reflection, self-knowledge has its limits. That knowledge is insufficient alone for any kind of real change, which is kind of an interesting thing. We usually believe that if we learn about something and we know it and we integrate it, that that is going to be enough. But knowledge as expertise, as skill building, or theoretical or practical understanding is really only one form of knowing. It was Albert Einstein, of all people, who said, imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge defines our current understanding, but imagination points to what we might be, what we might create. So this time of year, as we've moved out of the holiday season of Christmas and Hanukkah, the Christian tradition of Epiphany continues because the nativity story continues. The wise ones, the wise men, the magi, do not find the Christ child on Christmas Eve. They actually find baby Jesus in the manger many days, months, who knows, maybe even many years later. But they finally come upon baby Jesus, and it marks a celebration. Epiphany is the recognition of the divine nature of that child. An awareness, an aha moment that they came away from and departed and could never be the same again. The experience of Epiphany has broad implications. It is defined by a sudden realization, some kind of the essence of meaning coming from an event. And this can be, it doesn't have to even be something special. It can be a mundane event, like pouring a cup of coffee and smelling and having this great awareness about something much larger than just that cup of coffee. The aha moments are comprehension or perception of something that provides us with an intuitive insight and, in a sense, a profound meaning. Many of us have had something like an epiphany, moments of revelation, sudden realizations. But the thing that distinguishes epiphany from personal revelation or just personal insight is that it carries a responsibility to share. Epiphany is meant to be shared. New Orleans, I learned a little bit more about the celebrations and traditions around Epiphany because after in New Orleans, this Epiphany is celebrated all the way to Mardi Gras by the baking of king cakes. And so these are sweetbreads that are in a ring and they're baked, and there's a little plastic baby Jesus baked into the bread. And then the cake is decorated with purple and green sprinkles and a little frosting. And you are invited to a king cake party. It could be in a home, it could be in an office. These things just go on. It's something that just goes on and on and on. So you could be eating king cake basically right after Christmas all the way through till Lent. The idea of this is that if you are the one who is lucky enough to get this baby Jesus in your piece of cake, you become responsible for hosting or hostessing the next king cake party, and it should happen within a few days or within that week. So the idea of Epiphany is a bit of fun that speaks to the elements of both surprise and revelation, and also obligation of sharing what is revealed. Epiphany is not confined to the Christian tradition and story. We know from the story of Buddhism with the Enlightenment moment Siddhartha Gautama had as he became the Buddha under the tree, the Bodhi tree with what is now called nirvana, is very similar to what people call an epiphany. Judaism, we have Moses goes up to the mountain, he brings down the 10 Commandments, and while he's there, he has this moment of awe and wonder and revelation. And we see that the Prophet Muhammad in Islam, same kind of thing, this kind of revelatory moment where there's this reception. He goes on to write the Quran. And each one of these experiences, these religious leaders are compelled to share what they know, the kind of knowing that comes from Epiphany. But we don't really need religious traditions or religious observances to enter into these kinds of awareness. In fact, Annie Dillard is a nature writer, and she points to this special moment of awareness in her book, Pilgrim at Tinker Creek. And she starts out by telling us about a child who was born blind, who had operation to correct her vision. And she says this, she says, when the doctor took the bandages off and led her into the garden, the girl who was no longer blind saw the trees with the lights in it. She saw not only the tree, but every varying shade of green and the glimmer of light that played upon each leaf. Annie Dillard goes on to say this, it was for this tree I searched through the peach orchards of summer, in the forests of fall, and down winter and spring for years. Until one day, I was walking along Tinker Creek, thinking of nothing in particular at all, when I saw the tree with the lights in it. And it was less like seeing than being seen for the first time. And I was knocked breathless by a powerful grace. Most of us yearn to be knocked breathless by something so profoundly beautiful. Barbara Brown Taylor wrote in the Christian Century, she said, when I resist the economy and despair of the dominant world that we live in, I resist from a minority viewpoint that I learned in church. There are many kinds of evangelism, I know, but here is one I can embrace. In a culture of fear, addicted to bad news, to sin, to death, to keep telling stories of human kindness and divine grace without commercials of any kind. In a world like ours, the church may be the only corporate sponsor that it can afford to deliver such good news for free. And I do believe that's why we are here together this morning, to keep that kind of space alive. And perhaps you're showing up here this morning without much enthusiasm for that. Maybe this past year has, and even the year before, has taken so much from you that it's hard to even muster any sense of hope or any sense of opening to wonder or to joy. And as the faith community, you have had to say goodbye to your new minister and all of the promise and the hope that you invested in the process of coming together, and then the grief of that departure. But it's ministry that brings me here with you in the time that we'll have together. The targeted ministry program is new. It's a way of just having a short-term relationship which targets very specific elements of ministry and relationship to the minister to explore and to see and to lift up. So I think that this idea of epiphany is very pertinent to the kind of thing that we will be doing together. Seeing one another in this congregation with the lights on. In addition to doing that kind of ministry, I am also here to be your pastor. I'm here to stand with you, walk with you, and be with you during joys and sorrows, during anxiety, times of great questions. And I have posted my home phone and my home email address, and you can certainly contact me through the church website as well. But I want us to make this time matter, because I do think it matters. I think it matters not only for right now, it matters for the future hope for this congregation, for your community. And we really don't know, but we do know that the impact of a small group of people can have impact upon the world. So let us lend our hope and all the possibility that we can to come together and do that kind of imagining. So unlike the god Janus, whose gaze is only to the past, to the future, we will be taking a soulful look at right now. You know, Moses and the Buddha and Muhammad and the three kings were all transformed by their moments of deep insight and revelation. And so as we journey together into this year, into target ministry together, I hope that we are all transformed, that we will never be the same again. And we can only do that together if we open ourselves to the possibility and the imagination of what we are and what we can be, to the end that each shall know wholeness and all shall live as one. So may it be. Please join in our closing hymn, number 346, one of our most joyful hymns, Come Sing a Song with Me.
Come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, come sing a song with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come dream a dream with me, come dream a dream with me, come dream a dream with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come walk in rain with me, come walk in rain with me, come walk in rain with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time. Come share a rose with me, come share a rose with me, come share a rose with me, that I might know your mind. And I'll bring you hope when hope is hard to find. And I'll bring a song of love and a rose in the winter time.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again.
Our closing words today come from the words of Michael Schuler. We have reached the end of this time for the gathering of memory and for letting the imagination play with future possibilities. We have enjoyed magic moments and edified each other. Shall it be concluded then? Or will this adventure now continue? Our separate paths converging, meeting, merging, in the unending quest for love more perfect, the joyous struggle for meaning more sufficient and life abundant. Is this ending to be an ending, or merely a prelude to new, more glorious beginnings? I pose the question. In your heart lies the answer.